You absolutely struck out with the bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, with your Ohtani conversation.
You mean the Yamamoto?
No, Shohei.
Yeah, I struck out with Shohei. No, I didn't. I didn't strike
Well,
out with
you
Shohei.
said he
Wait,
was going to.
let me for the fans out there listening, let me set
I
it
think you
straight.
struck out with Shohei and
I
you
said
struck out with
Shohei was
Yamamoto.
either going to go back to Anaheim or the Dodgers because he lives in Southern California. And I was right. I was figuring Anaheim, but Dodgers make sense too. They're year
I
in,
don't
year out,
know.
year in
I'm
and
not
year out.
giving you that.
Now, where I struck out was the Yamamoto call. I said, since Ohtani has signed with the Dodgers, Yamamoto, being a biggest star as he is in Japan, would not want to play second fiddle to Ohtani in the Dodgers. So I thought by the Dodgers signing Ohtani, that would put them out of the running for Yamamoto because I think he'd want to go to have his own platform, his own stage to be the Japanese star in another venue like the Yankees. I was dead wrong. And come to find out behind the scenes, I don't have any behind the scenes information, but how it looks now with the crazy contract that Otani signed and the way he deferred all that money, it might have been a way of getting his buddy Yamamoto and clearing up that space for salary to get him to the Dodgers, unbeknownst to me, and I think a lot of the people out there that were trying to predict where Yamamoto was going to go. So I was dead wrong on that. I thought he was going to the East Coast, and when he signed with the Dodgers, I was kind of shocked, like, "Ooh, I can't believe that." But different guys like different things. There's some guys that wouldn't want to be in the shadow of an Otani when, especially when you're the level of star that Yamamoto is in Japan. And some guys love that and love. Maybe he loves his dream was always to play with Otani. He's getting his dream now. Either way, the Dodgers. It's almost an illegal roster they're
Well, a lot of people are
imposing
saying,
right now.
how fair is that the Dodgers get to sign Ohtani, defer most of the money, and then be able to go buy other players?
Well, the bottom line is it's within the rules. So if it's
Andrew
within the
Friedman.
rules, you can do it. I think what you're going to see going forward, there's going to be amendment to that rule. So it was a loophole. The Dodgers found it. 10 years from now, they're going to be paying him 68 million a year, and I think, sight unseen, they're kind of going, "Oh, we'll worry about that in 10 years." But it was a pretty cool loophole, and from Otani's standpoint, he clears the 68 million a year room for the Dodgers to spend more money. And for his time there, he doesn't have to worry about it because for 10 years, the Dodgers aren't on the hook. So great deal for Ohtani.
And Andrew
Very,
Friedman, my friend Andrew Friedman, has the best job security of any general manager in baseball because there's a loophole. If Andrew leaves, Ohtani becomes a free agent.
yeah. It's a real interesting, but I think you're going to see a lot of guys out there, people in the industry calling, crying foul on this. It's not foul; it's well within the rules. But I
Well,
think going forward, they're going to try to come up with an amendment so teams in the future, everybody's not just doing this. I think you're going to see that come out. They're probably already talking about it. How we can't have everybody doing this every year, so it'll be interesting. That'll be something that comes down the line.
well, where that loophole was probably first thought of was Joe Madden.
Could have
Joe
been.
Madden had that loophole that if Andrew Friedman left, he got to leave.
Yeah.
So
It's
there you
it's
go.
it's interesting all the way around because I mean Otani, you figure the way we're taxed as big league baseball players, wherever you play, you're taxed per day, whatever
Entertainment tax,
city you're playing
just
in. Now
like
you're
Taylor Swift.
right, you're playing in LA, 81 home games, you're going to get taxed at whatever the ridiculous California tax is. I think it's 13%. By him only making 2 million a year, and he's going to be making plenty of money off the field with other side deals. He's not worried about how much he's making on a yearly basis. And then when the 10 years is up, he's retired, and he starts to collect that 60 million. He could move to Florida where there's a 0% tax. So Otani in this thing, home run.
Yeah. Plus, people might not know this. You have to pay the same entertainer tax. I was teasing about Taylor Swift, but you have to pay an entertainer tax in every city that you play in.
Without a doubt, every day I used to get that. I'd go play to LA and the Angels in San Diego, maybe in a West Coast swing. So I had 10 days in LA. My next check reflected that. Your
Because the
payday,
city
it
of
comes out
LA,
right, 10 days of LA tax at that rate. So your check's going to be a lot smaller. And with the money these guys are making, it's not just a couple $1,000s. It's
right?
hundreds of thousands. So it makes sense from him from a financial standpoint. Uh be really interesting. what happens. And I have a feeling that when this is all said and done, let's say he moves to and I'm using this just for as a
For
you
fun,
know,
entertainment
right,
purposes only.
right. I mean, you move to like a Texas or a Las Vegas or a
Florida,
Florida. It's zero tax. I'm not saying he's moving that. I was just using that as an
right?
example.
Or he moves back to Japan and doesn't have
But
to
I'll
pay
guarantee you
state tax.
this: states like California, states like New York,
They'll get aggressive.
they're going to
Illinois,
kind of come after you and say, "Wait a minute." And I see a court case coming. Like, wait a minute, you signed this contract when you were in California for 10 years. We want our piece,
right?
and that'll be for the courts to find out. But the law says no, it doesn't matter. You didn't get that money when you were
Yeah.
there. But California, they don't they don't like that. So
All right.
once again, that's 10 years away. Nobody's worried about it.
All right, well, let's get to it. Free agency. So let's just kind of pick up where we are right now, if you don't mind, right? The Reds get Frankie Montes to fill out their rotation. The other news that was coming out this week was Chris Sale is going to the Red Sox. The Braves get Chris Sale for the Red Sox for Von Grisham and Cash. This is a win-win for everybody. No?
I don't know. For me, I don't trust the Chris Sale deal. I heard this Grisham kid's got a chance to be a 2020 guy in the big leagues. You're giving that up. I believe they're also giving up $10 million
Right.
for a guy in Sale who obviously, when 100% healthy, has Cy Young type stuff. But when's the last time he's been healthy? I don't trust that deal. Hey, if he's Sale of 5 years ago, they've got something there. But I'm going to remain quite the pessimist
To
when
see
it
whether he
comes
can stand.
when it
Yeah.
comes to this deal. Yeah. As far as the Montas, I was a Montas guy at one time. He pitched for the Oakland A's, went to the Yankees, didn't pitch
Right.
the entire season. I've never been all in on him. He's more of a show me guy, like show me that you're really the real deal. So I don't get too excited about that Reds deal either. I think the Reds are excited about it, but that remains to be seen. Once again, I'm going to be pessimistic on that move as well. Along with the Giolito.
I was going to
Giolito
say,
just signed
Giolito's going to the Red Sox, 2 years, 38 mil.
another big question mark for me. I sat here 2 years ago and predicted he was going to be the Cy Young. And for 2 years, just like his former team, Chicago White Sox, I've been very disappointed in 2 years. I think the White Sox over the last 2-3 years 3 years ago were set up to be a World Series caliber team, and they've vastly disappointed me uh, on all my calls. I thought they were going to be the team of the future. They were going to be someone to be reckoned with on a year in, year out basis. They haven't been. Giolito, I thought he was going to be a Cy Young Award winner by now. He's disappointed me as well. So I'm going to go the last three you just mentioned. I'm pessimistic on all three.
All right, Mariners get Mitch Garver. They've made some moves on some trades. Suarez, Kelenic leaving. They go get Mitch Garver.
Here's the problem with the Mariners. I like the Mitch Garver move, coming off a World Series champion with the Texas Rangers. Really good fit. He'll fit right into that DH role, and that's a nice get for the Seattle Mariners. The problem I see is the pitching is plentiful in Seattle. The bullpen is outstanding. The starting rotation is really outstanding. They got young arms, guys that are under control. Pitching is not a problem at all. It's been the offense. It's been the offense for the last 4 or 5 years. Teoscar Hernandez was the right fielder. They say they want to get away from the big strikeout numbers. Teoscar Hernandez, I believe, led the league in strikeouts this year. Drove in 94 as well. Had a pretty good year for him, hit 20-plus home runs. Suarez, third baseman, plays a Gold Glove caliber defense. I think he hit 230 something, but he drove in close to 100 runs. So you need to replace 190 some RBIs. And you brought in Mitch Garver. That's great. Mariners are, in my opinion, far from done. You need 2 more legitimate bats. Now, I've been hearing the possibility of signing Teoscar Hernandez back is definitely in the fold for Seattle. I like Teoscar. I think especially the second half, he came on really strong. I think for his price point, it makes sense in Seattle. But Seattle's got to make a splash. They got more than enough pitching, and I'm really talking about Miller and Wu at the end of the rotation. These 2 young guys got about a year of service. They could bring a big bat in return for one of those guys. And I think they have the flexibility with all the pitching they have and pitching on the horizon to move one of those young pitchers for a bona fide, real, legit bat to stick in the middle of that lineup. because you're going to need it. You got rid of Kellenic. Kellenic, I thought, was good for the organization. I think it's good for Kellenic to move on and get a fresh start. He's going to
Right.
Atlanta. I think the pressure was just too much for him, and I don't mean it in a negative way. It was such a buildup.
Expectations.
Right. It was such a buildup how great he was going to be. Never quite lived up to that. And I just see with his personality, it's good for him to move on. But you've got to replace some offense on that Seattle Mariner ball club. I think the key for them is the Woo Miller via the trade to get some legit bats in there.
All right, Padres sign Yuki Matsui, 5 years, $28 million to be their closer, and it could be even more.
Well, that's good because Josh Hader has been arguably the best closer in baseball the last 4 or 5 years, coming off another huge year for him, 1 point something ERA. And it looks like the writing's on the wall. He's not going to be back in San Diego, so that makes sense. It's going to be interesting to see what Hader gets in free agency and where he goes. There's a lot of suitors out there for him. I like the move for San Diego. And San Diego's kind of stood pat this offseason, with the exception of the Soto move. I thought the Soto move was great. I think they've got plenty of offense in San Diego. Moving Soto to New York, I think it's going to benefit him as well, and the Yankees. I think that's going to be a great deal for the Yankees. King coming back in the trade for Soto. He's kind of been an under the radar guy as far as, everything was Soto during that trade. This King kid coming back from the Yankees, if you don't know who he is now, he's going to be in that rotation, in the middle of that rotation in San Diego. He's going to be really good. So I think San Diego's a playoff ball club if they don't do anything else after today.
Lourdes Gurriel Jr. re-signs with the Arizona Diamondbacks. We haven't talked a lot about the Diamondbacks. They're the defending National League champions.
Gurriel coming back, had a great year for him. They like him. I believe he's 30 years old. They also signed Eduardo Rodriguez, and they got Suarez in that trade for the Mariners. So you're probably getting another 100 RBI bat in a really good defensive third baseman. Suarez, Eduardo Rodriguez will shore up that rotation. And Gurriel's been a part of that movement over there in Arizona. So I think Arizona's made some good moves, and they haven't lost anything, and they're coming off a World Series berth. So I see nothing but positive things for Arizona going forward.
One of the other teams that you were talking about off camera were the Kansas City Royals, and they're doing little things that are going below the radar, but they could prove to be something. They got Waka to come over in a 2-year, $32 million deal.
I think it's more than that. I think they got Seth Lugo, who was a Padre last year, Waka, who was a Padre. Both exceeded expectations in San Diego.
And they bring back and they bring in Hunter Renfroe as well.
Hunter Renfroe, Will Smith. Now, these aren't huge blockbuster deals like a Soto, like a Blake Snell that's going to sign somewhere in the future. But these are just small deals. That's quietly making Kansas City a much better team. They've been in the basement. Let's be honest. They haven't been noteworthy for the last few years. And just making those, they got Will Smith to shore up that bullpen. So you got 4 veteran guys that have been there, done that. And I think I don't expect Kansas City Royals to go to the World Series this year, but I think their fan base will really be receptive to these moves. It shows that they're going in the right direction. So they should be a much better ball club in 24.
Let's see. How about this kind of went below the radar as well, because we were talking about the Dodgers and getting Shohei and Yamamoto. They also grabbed Tyler Glasnow in a deal. Talk to me about that.
It's amazing to me, the Dodgers and what they've done. You're looking at a Walker Buehler is their number one. You've got a Glasnow, Cy Young stuff. Yamamoto, all the hype. He's never thrown a pitch in the big leagues, but everything the way it is and the things I've heard, this guy's the real deal. He might be the 3rd starter. You haven't even gotten to Kershaw yet. He hasn't retired. Kershaw had a pretty good year last year, got beat up in the playoffs, but he's still Clayton Kershaw. The Dodgers have the potential, and we're not even talking about Ohtani because he's not going to be pitching this year. If you fast forward to 25, your rotation is Walker Buehler, Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto, and Ohtani are your first 4. So Ohtani could potentially be the 4th starter, or flip it however you want. Walker Buehler's your number 4. Are you kidding me? And then Kershaw on that 5 spot. It's almost too much. But the great thing about Major League Baseball, and I've lived this, I've played on an unbelievable team that won 116. I've played on some great Braves teams, some great Cincinnati Reds teams. Doesn't matter how good you are, how much talent you have. You still got to go out and do it. You're not accounting for injuries, team chemistry. But I look at this roster, this Dodgers roster, top to bottom. It's almost like an all-star roster. So they're going to be really tough to beat. But as this modern day playoff format shows, nothing is for sure. It's yeah, this Dodger team, unless something absolutely out of our control major happens, they are going to the playoffs. But modern history has shown that once you get there, that doesn't necessarily mean anything for anybody as far as winning that World Series trophy. So it's going to be interesting. You're going to have a lot of people that didn't hate the Dodgers. They're going to hate them. The guys that hated the Dodgers are going to hate them a lot more. They're absolutely going to be pay-per-view to watch this team and how talented they are. But at the end of the day, anything could happen. And I wouldn't say, oh, they're going to win the World Series. No, we got to play the games.
All right, Giants got a shortstop from Korea that nobody's talked about in Lee. He's supposed to be a big bat for a team that needs some offense.
Once again, you got to see it. He's coming over from Korea. It's the biggest Korean signing ever. I believe it's 113 million. Once again, I've never seen
and he
seen
can
him
opt
play.
out after 4.
Yeah, never seen him play. I'm sure he's a really good player. People nowadays with the data points and the technology, they're pretty good at getting it right on who they give the big money to. But there's the human element, you know. How does he change coming into a new culture, new environment? A lot of expectations. That big contract, you know, guys are made differently, and you never know how you're going to respond. Some guys are unbelievable in a free agent year and a walk year. Some guys put that too much pressure on themselves and don't perform the way they're capable of. So I'm assuming he's going to be as advertised. But until you play in the big leagues, put up the numbers. Nothing is a for sure thing. But I think the Giants are pretty happy with that signing.
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we already talked about Soto before. I think
Sonny Gray going
Gray.
to St. Louis, and Lance Lynn. I'm not really that excited about it. I'm a little pessimistic, but for me, Sonny Gray is a diamond in the rough. I think he's always had those high expectations as a young pitcher. I think he's finally matured into those expectations at a little bit of at an older age. But man, I think St. Louis got a good one in Sonny Gray. He's nasty in his prime right now, and for the next 2 or 3 years, I think that was an under the radar, sneaky good sign, and they did it early. The rest we're going to see. You know, I look at see what Texas is going to do. You know, Kimbrel went to Baltimore. The veteran, maybe potential Hall of Fame one year guy. That's because Bautista last year, the dominant closer, probably the best closer in the big leagues last year. You know, Hader's going to have a little bit of a say there, but he went down with Tommy John late in the season, so they're going to be without Bautista, their closer. So Kimbrel's going to fill that void for a year. Other than that, a lot of free agents still out there. 6 weeks until spring training opens. It's going to be interesting to where some of these big free agents. And I look at the free agency market this year, Rich. It's not overly exciting. You know, the big ones have signed. There's a few out there that, yeah, are big names, but I'm not overly excited about the remaining free agents. A lot of good players that are going to make whoever they go to a better team, but none of those just blockbuster. Oh, they got him. Now they're going to the World Series.
That was Soto and Yamamoto and Ohtani. Well, Bret, let's get into the free agents since we've gone through all the signings right now. Of course, there's 4 big free agents that are sitting out there. They're all controlled by Scott Boras. We're talking about Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Cody Bellinger, and Matt Chapman.
All right, we'll start with Snell. He's the guy that came over from Tampa Bay to the San Diego Padres about 4 years ago. Can't deny the year he had last year, especially the last 4 months of the season. I think he had a 1 ERA the last 4 months of the season, won the Cy Young. He's sitting out there. For me, I'll take a Blake Snell. This is a guy I've been watching for years. He's got Randy Johnson type stuff, but year in and year out, he should be at the top of the Cy Young watch, and he's not. And I don't know what reason that is. For guys like that, I don't like to give 100, 200, 300 million to guys. I don't know what I'm getting. I might get that Blake Snell that won the Cy Young, or I might get that Blake Snell a couple years ago that had a high 4 ERA. And when you're paying 200 million for somebody, I expect to know what I'm getting year in and year out. I wouldn't pay the big money for Blake Snell. I don't question his ability. Just won the Cy Young. How can I? But long term, if you want to talk 3 years and 75 million, I'm all in on Blake Snell. You want to talk 200 million, I'm out. Montgomery, he's going to get paid. I think he started with the New York Yankees, went over to St. Louis, has been nothing but successful ever since. Obviously, we watched him last year. Huge part of that Texas run and the reason, a big part of why they won the World Series. I think he's going to get paid. I think he's going to go back to the New York Yankees after all this is said, done, been traded again. I think he's going to go back to the Yankees. I'm in on Montgomery. Uh, Cody Bellinger, another interesting case. Won an MVP a few years back. Back-to-back years hit 180 and 190. Then all of a sudden is comeback player of the year again. He's another guy like Snell. If I know the Cody Bellinger I'm getting from 2023 or when he won the MVP, I'm all in. Give him what he wants. But I don't trust it. I don't know what I'm getting. So for a small deal, a 2 or 3 year deal for 75, 50 or 75 million, I'm all in on Bellinger. Paying him 200 million, I'm out. Who was the fourth guy you named? Matt Chapman, another
Matt
guy.
Chapman.
He's been a platinum gold glove. Platinum gold glove to me is stupid. That's the new glove they give.
Right.
You get the gold glove, and then we decided that this guy's the greatest of the greatest. Well, if that's the case, it should be a shortstop every single year because shortstop is by far the most demanding, toughest defensive position. So nobody else should ever win except for a shortstop. But they give the platinum glove out. That being said, joking aside, Matt Chapman is a bona fide year in and year out gold glove candidate at third base. He's a power guy. But to me, he hits 230, 240 every single year. I had Matt Chapman as a young player. I think he's a great player. I'll take him on my team. But for huge money, you can have him. That's why I'm not that excited about this year's list of free agents, the guys remaining. I look further than the four you mentioned. Josh Hader, I'll take him. I'm all in on him to be a bona fide closer. He's only 29 years old. I'll take him. Clayton Kershaw, it's going to be interesting. Is he going to sign with the Dodgers? Is he going to sign with the Texas Rangers? He wants to play one more year. I couldn't imagine him out of a Dodgers uniform. He's going to have to take a little bit of a discount. I look at Hoskins from Philadelphia.
Somebody who you liked.
Good first baseman, missed this season. He's probably going to go back to Philly. He'd be a good fit in Seattle. Bader, who came over to the Yankees, played center field, got traded. Sitting currently, his last team was the Cincinnati Reds. I don't hear his name being bantered about.
No.
Obviously, a top shelf center fielder as far as going and getting it defensively. I don't know. Soler, the Miami Slugger, strikes out a lot. Who knows where he's going to land? Jock Peterson. He has an uncanny way of put every team he goes to becomes a contender.
Right.
Interested. JD Martinez, professional hitter. He's 36 years old. Is that going to be a factor? But somebody could use his wisdom, his veteran status. I think he's good for young players. He's a real astute. He really studies the game. He's a great hitting guy. Drove in 100 last year. Could be good for somebody. So all these things are floating
You
around.
got Brandon Belt sitting out there as well.
How about a Timmy Anderson from the Chicago White Sox? 2 years ago, he won a batting title. Nobody's talking about him. He'd be a good fit in Seattle if he'd be willing to go over and play second base instead of short. There's a lot of guys. Brantley, who's been hurt for the Houston Astros, left-handed hitter, wonderful hitter. Getting older. He's 30. I think he's 33 years old. But I'll tell you what, this kid could hit. Somebody is going to get a bargain with him if he doesn't sign back with Houston. So there's a lot of Mark Stroman, who year in and year out, rubs a lot of people wrong with things he says, and he's very outward on social media. But year in and year out, he's pretty good. He pitches pretty well. I don't see a lot of interest in a Marcus Stroman right now. Obviously, somebody's going to sign him, and they're going to get a good pitcher. But I think his public persona has really hurt him as far as being a guy that everybody wants. So it's going to be interesting to watch all these guys. And for me, the biggest guy out there right now is Cease, pitcher with the Chicago White Sox.
Right.
Dylan Cease. He's going to be a trade target, and I think a lot of teams are really in on him. It'll be interesting to find out where he goes and for what. But he's under control for 2 more years before he's a free agent. He's the guy that everybody's gunning for right now, Dylan Cease.
Who has to make a move? Which team is under the gun the most?
Well, you look at the winners. Obviously, the Dodgers don't need to do anything else. I don't think the San Diego Padres. Everybody could always use pitching. Phillies are fine. I talk about the top guys, top teams from last year. The Texas Rangers. They probably want to add someone because they're probably going to lose Montgomery if they lose
Right.
in that sweepstakes. They're going to
Astros?
have to add somebody. The Astros are pretty set. They're pretty set with a real good team. They're going to the postseason again. They can always. The bottom line is it always comes down to me pitching. The Mariners
Pitching,
have
pitching,
to get
pitching.
better offensively. They have to. The Kansas City Royals, we already talked about them. They did a lot of second tier signings, but good ball players. They're going to be better. I think everybody, Boston's made its move. They got Giolito. Okay. Is that going to help them? It might be. I might be dead wrong. But I think everybody always needs pitching. Problem is, there's not that much of it out there. And whoever gets Snell, Montgomery, and then Stroman will probably fall third in there. I don't know. I wouldn't sleep on Clayton Kershaw. He's going to be a good deal. I know he's older. I think Kershaw now is 35 years old. He's still Clayton Kershaw, one of the greatest lefties to ever pitch in this game. If he's got one more year on him, he could be a real good fit for some team to be in the middle of that rotation. He's used to being that bona fide number one. This stage of his career, he's more like a 2 or a 3. I think he might be a good pickup for somebody that's not really paying attention.
What about Baltimore? I've been my radio shows in Baltimore. Those guys went crazy last year. What an amazing year for them. Tell me about Baltimore.
Baltimore's they're just up and coming, and they won 100+ games last year after 2 years prior to that losing 100 games.
Right.
Really exciting with the young talent on that team. And we just mentioned Dylan Cease. I think the Orioles are probably the top candidate to land him because they've got a really good minor league system and they got plenty to offer. I think Cease goes to the Orioles.
Tampa Bay will be Tampa Bay. They'll pull a
I don't know.
hat.
I haven't heard much from Tampa Bay this year. I mean,
They're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. They'll find somebody that
they're
nobody else
unbelievable. They got rid of their best pitcher. Obviously, he had been hurt quite a bit, so he wasn't the glass now that we expect. But they moved him on to the Dodgers. They'll find a way to replace that. They always do. But they haven't been very active this winter. And I think they're more sellers right now. They got to the postseason and were really disappointed how they played once they got to the postseason. I don't see them acquiring anybody else. I think they're going to go to their formula, which they've been doing for years and years, and has been very successful. Not winning a World Series, but getting to the postseason. I think you're going to see a bunch of people that we've never heard of coming up in the Tampa Bay organization and being competitive,
as they always do. Cardinals. We haven't heard much from the Cardinals, have we? Enough?
No, we talked about Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn.
Is
Lance
that enough?
Lynn? No, but the Cardinals have that magic touch too. Last year, they weren't a postseason team for, I don't remember the last time we weren't talking about the Cardinals going to the postseason. Last year, they didn't make it, had a real disappointing season. The corner infielders are still great. Adding a Sonny Gray is going to be really good. I don't see them. I don't think they're going to be somebody we're talking about unless they play above expectations, get to a trade deadline, make a couple blockbuster trades. I don't think you're talking about the Cardinals being a real contender to go deep into the postseason. They're going to be better than they were a year ago.
Well, that's a look, a little primer to get you ready as we get closer to the NFL playoffs, which means spring training's right around the corner, and everybody who's a baseball fan starts getting antsy about the time the Super Bowl rolls around, right?
You got it. Yeah, it's been good for me to get back into it because I've kind of been on this vacation for a couple of weeks and
Right.
really had to get back
How much
on
weight
top
did you
of what's
put
going on.
How much weight did you put on, Chunky Monkey?
I've lost about 6, so.
All right. I just want to make sure because, I know how you go with Swedish Fish.
Sit mid 195s. That doesn't even make sense. Mid 195s. I'm in the mid 190s. There you go.
All right.